imprisoned. That's what so many people are experiencing right now, feeling as if they are imprisoned, that we are imprisoned. And it gets to us a little bit as we continue to honor this stay-at-home order that we are experiencing. It's not just those of us who have to stay at home. It struck me to listen to the stories of healthcare workers who've gone weeks now without seeing their families. So even though they're working and they're on the front lines, they are kind of feeling imprisoned too because they can't go back home. You know, there's something that we see in scriptures, and especially in these post-resurrection scriptures. The apostles gathered in the upper room and they felt imprisoned. They were confused. They didn't know what to do, so they sheltered themselves in place. Jesus broke into that. And he said to them, "Peace be with you." And somehow their lives began to be touched and re-energized and strengthened so that they could proclaim the truth of the resurrection. And that was the beautiful thing about it. But they had to go through that experience. They were restricted. They wanted to break out. They couldn't until Jesus touched their lives. You know, I've been spending a lot of time with my 4-year-olds, my twin girls, in the past few weeks. And I've been learning a lot from them and finding ways to apply even spiritual themes to what I see in their lives. And one of the experiences I call the Great Escape. And the Great Escape happened last week when, let me put it in context. So my wife and I take shifts to make sure that we can keep time with the girls covered, that they're supervised. They are early risers, and that is probably the most challenging time of the day for us to get up and get them covered. They're usually up about 5:30. If they sleep till 6, that's sleeping in. So one day last week, it was my turn to do the early duty. And I kind of kept the girls, the twins, occupied for a good stretch of time. But at 7 a.m., they were kind of getting restless. And one of them said to the other, "Let's go outside." Now, they were saying this while they were still in their pajamas, and they had no shoes on. And of course, Papa, as they call me, I'm there in my slippers and my shorts and t-shirt, taking care of a little bit of breakfast for them and trying to keep them occupied. At the same time, trying to convince them to, okay, the attention should be inside. It should be inside, not outside. Well, when I turned my back, they hit the sliding door out to the deck, into the backyard. I at first wanted to charge out after them, but they weren't listening to me, and I figured, okay, they're safe, they're fine, because there's a fence in the backyard. But you know, what happened was that a few years ago, a strong branch, fell off of a tree and actually created a little bit of a gap in the fence. And I didn't notice it because I'm of this size and girth, and I would never think to go through there. but my 4-year-olds could go through that little gap, and they did. And I saw that and my heart sank, because they charged out into the neighbor's yard and were running all through the neighbor's property, onto the toys, the skateboards, and the other things that were left outside by the neighbors. And I got dressed, got shoes on as fast as I could, and ran out. Well, one of them responded rather quickly and came to me and came back in the house. And the other one, not so much. So after I got the first one in, I had to go back and get the second one, and it was an ordeal. Finally got her in. And it took a while. Actually, I had to separate her and explain to her, as she's in tears because she wanted to be outside and she thought she should be there, and she couldn't figure out why. I had to spend some time with her and hold her. And it was in the holding her that finally I could say the message of why she shouldn't go out into the neighbor's yard, through the fence and into the neighbor's yard, and play with the neighbor's toys, especially this time. It took a while for them to understand the purpose of boundaries. It took a while. They needed to, especially the latter, needed to be really comforted and reassured, shown mercy and love before she could really grasp what the message was about. A few days later, we were out in the yard, actually in the front yard where there's no fence, and she turns to me and says, "We are not going to go to the neighbor's yard. We stay right here. We don't go to the neighbor's yard." I said, "That's right." She says, "Yes, very good. We shouldn't play with the things in the neighbor's yard." "That's right." Says, "Yes, very good. Papa, I'm not going to run away. I'm going to stay here. I'll help you rake leaves." I said, "Oh my goodness, she got it. She got it." It was a great insight. You know, I was thinking about the gospel where Jesus goes in and talks to the apostles, says, "Peace be with you," and they're fortified in their imprisonment. He showed mercy to them. And we heard a lot about mercy, divine mercy, in last Sunday's gospel. Thomas wasn't there. Thomas didn't get it. He was slow to believe and slow to accept. And Jesus had to say to him, "Okay, Thomas, you weren't there. And I understand you weren't there." And even in that unbelief, he says, "Here, touch my wounds. Touch my wounds so that you could believe. I'm happy that you believe, but blessed are those who do not see and believe." Jesus needed to show that particular mercy to Thomas so that he could understand that the Lord had to break through. He was not with the apostles, but he was living his own imprisonment. And he needed the mercy of Jesus to bring him alive, to show him the way. The apostles had to put it into action. And you know, there's something about this time of year, especially in the Easter season, the mystagogy that begins to encourages the neophytes, the newly baptized, and all of us as church really, to not only think with our heads, but let the Word of God, let the reality of Jesus Christ, risen from the dead, touch our lives in real ways, in the lived experience. And that's so true for us. That's so true for us. There's something that is striking to me that came from Pope Francis in a homily he gave in this past Divine Mercy Sunday. And it strikes me because it says that we need to really have that encounter with Jesus, and just not for me, just not my own wonderful experience with Jesus, but to do something with it, to go out and let that encounter make a difference. And how does that make a difference in how we interact with the world? And Pope Francis said it this way. On this Feast of Divine Mercy, the most beautiful message comes from Thomas, the disciple who arrived late. He was the only one missing when Jesus first appeared to the apostles. But the Lord waited for Thomas. Mercy does not abandon those who stay behind. Now, while we are looking forward to a slow and arduous recovery from the pandemic, there is a danger that we will forget those who are left behind. The risk is that we may be struck by an even worse virus, that of selfish indifference. A virus spread by the thought that life is better if it is better for me, and that everything will be fine if it's fine for me. It begins there and ends up selecting one person over another, discarding the poor, and sacrificing those left behind on the altar of progress. The present pandemic, however, reminds us that there are no differences or borders between those who suffer. We are all frail, all equal, all precious. May we be profoundly shaken by what is happening all around us. The time has come to eliminate inequalities, to heal the injustice that is undermining the health of the entire human family. Let us learn from the early Christian community described in the Acts of the Apostles. It received mercy and lived with mercy. All those who believed were together and had all things in common, and they sold their possessions and goods and distributed them to all as any had need. This is not some ideology. It is Christianity. The challenge then for us is, what will we do in this time of internment? Is it really a time that moves us to show mercy and compassion and love to others? You know, as I look around for examples, I look at those healthcare workers, I look at those our first responders, and people who are doing essential duties, frontline essential duties for us, so that we can continue to live and be fed and provided for, cared for. They are there. They are answering out of their internment. May the Lord give us grace, all of us, to say yes to what he asks of us. Malvern forward. Together we can. With God's grace we will. Thank you.